Okay, I'd like to call to order the Regional Planning Governing Board meeting of Thursday, October 20th, with a roll call.
Arlene Bybee.
Here.
David Bobzine. Here. Marcia Burke-Bigler. Here. Jenny Breckus. Absent Naomi Dewar.
Here.
Von Hartung.
Here.
Jeannie Herman. Ed Lawson. Ed Lawson. Gino Martini. And Paul McKenzie.
Here.
Okay. Do we want to see if is Ed still on the line? Ed, are you there? We need to wait.
We'll try calling again.
Okay.
Take it off mute.
There's your answer.
That is.
It is?
It doesn't fit him at all. Did we have to wait for him to come on?
Hi, this is Ed. Please leave me a message and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Okay, join the meeting, Ed, when you are ready to join us. I will go to a salute to the flag. Mayor Martini, will you lead us in the pledge?
Please join me in the pledge to the greatest flag in the world.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you, Mayor. Okay, item number 3, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
So moved.
I have a motion, Member Dewar, second by Member Burke-Bigler. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item number 4, approval of the minutes.
Move approval.
I have three minutes from August 11th, August 29th, and September 15th. Is the motion to approve all 3?
Yes, it is.
And a second? Where'd the second come? Hartung, okay. Moved by Member Burke-Bigler, seconded by Member Hartung. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item number 5, public comment. Do we have public comment today?
No, I do not.
Okay, is there anyone wishing to speak under public comment who hasn't filled out a card? Okay, seeing none, I'll move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda A, consideration and possible acceptance of the fiscal year 2015-2016 fourth quarter and fiscal year 2016-2017 first quarter budget and work program reports. Do I have a motion? Any questions, comments, or do I have a motion? Okay,
I have
move
just
to-
a question.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask, has this been our practice, Kim, to do a quarterly, I just didn't recall it.
Yes, it has been.
I mean, I assumed it was, but I
Yes,
didn't
it is
recall.
prior practice, correct.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor by Martini, a second by Hartung. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Let's move on to item 7, business of the day, which is our first item A is a public hearing, regional plan amendment, presented by Lauren Ferrer. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair and board members. For the record, Lauren Knox, Regional Planning. This agenda item requests an amendment to the Reno-Stead Corridor Joint Plan as part of the regional plan. It can be found starting on page 19 of your packet. I'll just provide a brief history of the Reno-Stead Corridor Joint Plan. The plan was initially adopted in 1999 as a way to better coordinate planning efforts in the Reno-Stead area and to preserve desired community characteristics as the area matures. The last major update in 2010 was to account for changes to conditions in the area, as well as changes to the Reno and Washoe County master plans. The total area covered by the joint plan is approximately 4,300 acres. The goals and policies found in the joint plan recognize the environmental aspects of the area and also aim to respect adjoining land uses and emphasize compatible development. Here you can see the area covered by the Reno-Stead Corridor Joint Plan. For reference, to the west is Red Rock Road, and to the east is the Golden Valley area. The Reno City Council and Washoe County Commission held a joint public hearing in which they approved a request to alter the boundaries of the joint plan by removing a 55.5 acre parcel. Per policy 4.2.4 of the regional plan, this action requires a regional plan amendment to modify the boundaries of the Reno-Stead Corridor Joint Plan. Also, policy 4.2.1 discusses the need for the joint plan to be consistent with the regional plan and designate the portions of the area under the City of Reno's jurisdiction and Washoe County's jurisdiction. So again, overhead is the map depicting the current Reno-Stead Corridor Joint Plan area. The request is to remove the subject property located on the south side of Sky Vista near its intersection with Trading Post Road. So if approved, the parcel will be removed and the new boundary is depicted above. For regional plan amendments, policy 4.3.6 of the regional plan requires the items listed on the slide overhead. Generally, these items will not be negatively impacted, as the amendment would simply remove the subject parcel from the joint plan, and the parcel would then become subject solely to the City of Reno's master plan, which is in conformance with the regional plan. Also, the remainder of the area will be maintained, and no other alterations to the joint area plan are being requested at this time. So with that, staff recommends that the RPGB consider the regional plan amendment and adopt Resolution 16-07, adopting an amendment to remove the subject site from the Reno-Stead Corridor Joint Plan. A suggested motion is overhead as well as on page 22 of your packet, and I'm available for any questions you have.
Thank you. Do I have questions or comments? Ms. Stewart?
Oh, thank you. Hi, thank you. Great little presentation there. But I understand all the findings, but what I didn't understand, what I was missing was the essential why. And what prompted it? Could you just cover that?
Yeah, of course. So the joint plan is a part of the regional plan. It's part
Right.
of map 6. And so in order to amend that boundary, we have to move forward with the regional plan amendment.
Right. And why were we wanting to amend the boundary? That's just what I'm after.
Oh, okay. So the City of Reno received an application for a master plan amendment to basically redesignate that area under their specific master plan land use, which would also require the removal from the joint plan.
Thank you.
Do I have other questions? Mr. Hartung?
Just a comment, Madam Chair, and I'm going to be supporting this, and I'm going to do it in the spirit of cooperation with the other agencies. And I would remind the other agencies that we didn't 100% get a spirit of cooperation when we asked to amend policy 1.3.3, but I will support this. Thank you.
Mr. Martini?
Lou, which one you didn't get approval for?
We got it in Sparks, but we didn't get it in Reno policy 1.3.3.
Which is, tell me again?
Policy, which has nothing to do with this, but policy 1.3.3 was when we asked, and the city of Sparks agreed that we would change the land use designation of some residential
Got
into
it.
commercial.
Okay, thank
And
you.
we asked the same thing from some parcels in the that were close to the city of Reno. Thank you. Thank you.
Do I have other questions or comments? Mr. McKenzie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the one finding that I would kind of disagree with is the infrastructure infrastructure in the area being supportive of the change. But that's something that will need to be worked through as a developer moves forward, because there's transportation issues out there, and there's lack of room in the schools out there, and we're looking at a housing project here that's going to affect both those infrastructure needs. So, but that's something that we'll discuss and resolve as this project moves forward.
Okay. Do I have other comments or questions? Anyone else? Okay. Seeing no further comments or questions, do I hear a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
a motion to approve.
Second?
Okay. I have a motion by Member Hartung, second by Member Burke-Bigler. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Lauren. Okay, so we are on item B for possible consideration, consideration and possible action on compensation for the Executive Director of Regional Planning. I have Norm Azevedo, our legal counsel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Norm Azevedo. Before you is the memorandum that's in your packet. I also handed out what I referred to as a worksheet that shows the only form of comparison I could come up with is what you're paying your previous director versus the current director. I'll make an opening statement as a matter of law. You can pay your director as you deem appropriate. But I wanted to give you a comparison as to looking back to Ms. Coombs, because they both, from an accounting standpoint, they're very similar. They have 5 years of service, each of them, during Ms. Coombs' last year, and your current executive director will meet her 5-year of service period on December 11th, 2016. As you will note, Kim's current compensation is $123,600. Rosanna's final compensation in 2011 was $144,524. That is that is a difference of $20,294. And then I did an additional calculation, being of the accounting sort, to see what would happen if we had a 1% increase for each of the 5 periods, what that $144,000 salary would look like in today's dollars, and that number comes to $151,894. So with that, I will refer to your deliberations and consideration. And again, as a matter of law, you're free to do as you see fit, but I thought this would give you a meaningful comparison. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open it to questions or comments from the board. Mr. Hartung?
There's technology around me. So the question that's before us today, we gave, Mr. Azevedo, we gave Ms. Robinson a 3% increase, the same as we had given her, the employees of
No.
regional, is that correct? 2? Oh, it says three here.
If I may, Madam
RGB
Chair.
members approved 3%
Yes.
increase.
Ms. Robinson?
I'm not sure Mr. Azevedo knows. I received a 3% last year. The staff received a 2%. Just
Oh,
wanna be
staff
clear.
only received a 2%.
That's correct. And the staff received a 2% this year.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that clarification, Ms. Robinson.
Mayor Martini?
Hello.
There you go.
Other staff members here, are they that far behind the, what do I want to call this, is that the 144 is the top of the range?
If I may, Madam Chair, what I did,
Yes,
Mayor
thank you.
Martini,
Yes, it is?
is I
Okay.
went and looked at the previous director's compensation.
Got it.
And I solely did it on director to director. I did not get into the staff.
Okay.
That 144 number is what Ms. Coombs was making in her 5th year of service in 2011.
All right, I got it, I think. To me, that's way off for a director of a regional planning governing board, I think. It represents all 3 entities, represents them pretty well, I might add. Done a good job, in my opinion. I'm looking for more to get her closer to what we paid the last one, which is still going to be way off. I'm looking for 5% raise. It's about $6,180. Sounds like a lot, but as she's so many dollars behind the last one, I think we have to do some. We always look for parity and looking to bring staff and so on and so forth to the middle ranges and those kind of things. So this still leaves her well behind the top. That's what I'm looking at, a 5% raise, which puts her to about $130,000.
Madam Chair. Ms. Burke-Bigler?
Mr. Acevedo, could you tell us, do you know what the executive directors of the other commissions in Reno are making? I mean, is she significantly below them also?
I would think so.
Madam Chair, I didn't do a survey. The reason I looked at the previous director of regional planning is the local planning director's duties, from what my perspective from a legal person, are a little bit different than the regional planning director's duties. And so that's why I went and looked at the past one. I did
We're
not.
deciding Kim's salary right now.
Okay.
Two cities make.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would agree with with Mayor Martini's comment that we look at a 5% or perhaps more. I mean, maybe, because we do need to get her up much closer to where she should be.
Ms. Stewart?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought this was a pretty interesting comparison. I wasn't willing to go the 5% above, which would have been the 1% since the last director. But this is the last director in 2011, same year of service, same year of background. Lots of people took cuts, so I don't think it should be accelerated above the 144. But I personally would be comfortable there, just in terms of about where the other directors, regional directors, in my knowledge, are much higher, into the 160s to 180s, even higher. So, I haven't done any salary survey, but I'm just saying, based on what we're presented here, I'm pretty comfortable around the 144. But, I'm interested in hearing what everybody else has to say.
Okay. I still want to keep conversation open. Do I have other comments from other board members regarding, I will say, as far as looking at the evaluation, I mean, let's just start there, because every category on the evaluation that we did for Ms. Robinson showed improvement. So there was, in some significantly, but across the board, there was a marked improvement in every one of the categories. So I think that speaks volumes too. It's not that Kim was doing a good job and just kind of stayed where she was. I think that improvement needs to be acknowledged, not just seniority and another year of service, and the fact that she was behind because all of us fiscally saw huge cuts in recent years. I think bringing merit also is important, that we acknowledge that, that we recognize her improvement, and that is worth something financially too for the budget as we look at salary. So I am supportive of definitely raising the salary. I'm in support of the 144 also, because that's where we ended, the last salary and comparable time. If we feel budget-wise we can, fit that into the budget, I'm comfortable with that. But let me hear from other members. Mr. Bobzian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think just to kind of move the conversation along, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. I'm very supportive of the idea of parity and recognizing that we are in recovery mode, and the fact that the evaluation was very, very good. But I think Mayor Martini's comments and Commissioner Burke-Bigler's comments about a 5% bump is a good one. We should strive and keep that 144 number in mind, but I think the prudent move to make, and the one that we can present to the public, is a 5% increase. So I would make that motion for a 5% increase.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, but I do have more discussion.
Yeah. 5% doesn't get her to 144, but how many places are we getting 5% increases in cities and counties right now? So, it doesn't sound like 5%. Long time ago when I was in the private sector, I would have been real mad. But in this environment, in the public sector, 5% is, I'm sorry to say, probably a pretty good raise. So I'm going to support that.
Okay, Mr. Hartung, you also had comment.
I do, Madam Chair, thank you. And I have no issue with supporting 5%. I think it's not only well-deserved and earned, but it's appropriate. But I would also proffer that it would be important we only gave her staff 2%. They work really hard. They're so spot on, every single one of them. I mean, I've never seen them once complain about a project that's been laid in their lap. I've never seen them once complain about a timeline that's been laid in their lap. And not that staff does anywhere. That's not the inference. It's not trying to draw a comparison, but I would say that it would be appropriate in the not too distant future to revisit those other raises. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, and I would also echo support for the staff, and as we look at our, as we look forward in the next budget, because this isn't something that we have on the agenda today, so we can't address that, but I would agree with you that looking future, forward for the staff and also for the executive director, these are things, hopefully, with the economy improving, that we're in the financial position that we can afford to do that and would like to be able to. So do I have more comments? I have a motion on the floor and a second. Mr. McKenzie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm also very supportive of the executive director getting more parity in her salary. But I think that our budget constraints are something we need to look at pretty closely. I never thought I would hear my friend Von Hartung step forward about supporting the working people before me, but I agree with Mr. Hartung that when we're looking at parity and fairness to the staff as a whole, that we need to look at what we're doing with the whole staff in the future to assure that we address their needs as well. But I'm supportive if we have the room in our budget for the 5%, and I see from the executive director's nod that
Desperate times, Paul.
that's where we're at. So, but we're kind of in a unique position here that if we have an increase in budget need, we've got to go to 3 separate entities to produce the extra money. So it's not something that we have an automatic source of revenue from. We've got to ask for that additional revenue from the 3 separate entities. So we've always got to be cautious with our budget. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Stewart?
And if I may, I think my colleagues have made some great comments here. I'm very supportive of the motion and the idea of revisiting. And I would like to phrase it in a different way, perhaps. We're talking here in terms of a 5%. And when I can totally agree that we should revisit, and what I would call that is a salary survey, comparative salary survey. And I just think we should do it for all of them. I think we should do Kim. I think we should do our staff and just look at the whole organization. And in terms of a salary survey analysis, even if we have to ask one of our 3 entities HR departments to assist with that or whatever. But I think that would be kind of a fair way, and not to, and when we get that data back, not to think, to try to not think about it in terms of a percent, or a percent, but just heading towards something, understanding what our parity goal is that we're shooting for, once we get the data, is what I'm saying. So.
Okay, so are you amending the motion?
No,
or you're
no.
just adding more
No, perhaps.
comments to the
Is that
current
something
motion?
of interest to the motion makers? I think we're taking one thing at a time, really, here, personally.
I think we just keep it
Yeah.
simple to the one
That's
motion.
how I'm feeling. But there was a lot of support for looking at this, so I'm just adding my support for looking at the other staff, but at the same time, looking at the directors, looking at the whole group, whenever we do that.
As the motion maker, I would
Yeah.
support that sentiment, and I agree that is something that we should do throughout the organization.
Yeah.
But for the
I agree.
specific of this motion,
Yeah, I wasn't
the motion's
proposing an
simple, it's
amendment.
plain.
Okay, so our motion is from, Mr. Azevedo?
On this particular topic, as far as the additional staff, I would recommend that the board, if they choose to do that, pick it up in the agenda for new items.
Yeah.
These were just
Okay.
comments, and they weren't meant
Okay.
to.
Your recommendation is taken. And so we have a motion by Member Bobzian with second by Martini? Hartung. Who did the second? Oh, Burke Bigler.
It's down at that end.
Okay.
No, it was Breckus.
Down at that end.
Oh,
I don't
Breckus.
know.
Madam Breckus.
Look at all the Bs here. Okay. Okay, so motion by Member Bobzian, seconded by Member Breckus, for a salary compensation increase of 5% for the executive director. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, item C, for possible action, discussion and possible direction regarding the 2017 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan update, and this would be Executive Director Kim Robinson.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. If I could also have my presentation put up on the screen and some help shifting through the slides, that would be great. Thank you. Okay, so what I want to share today is an item that was presented to the Regional Planning Commission on Tuesday evening and was passed at the Planning Commission. We can move to the next one. So this is a bit of a conversation update on the regional plan update. I love saying update on the update, but in terms of the process. So this is a graphic that you have seen previously in terms of kind of the various projects that are in play or out there. We have a variety of agencies that have either just finished their comprehensive plans, such as the City of Sparks, working on theirs, such as City of Reno. We have the Regional Water Management Plan out there, and if you just click the button, you'll see that we have just learned that, the airport has also just added a master plan update that they're going to do. We're going to work with them. There it is, our fancy little airplane up there as well. So this again is a graphic to provide some context with the amount of moving parts that are out there in terms of other folks having conversations around strategic or master plans. Next. So we talked a little bit with the Planning Commission in September at a workshop around the components of the process, and we brought this back to them at the meeting on Tuesday. We believe that there are going to be about 6 components of the process. This is based on the research that we've done around the country, including values, regional partnerships, data gathering, community engagement, technical analysis, and the development of the regional plan. And as we worked on that, next. Oh, thank you. Sorry about that, I'm a little distracted. Okay, here we go. So in terms of the components of the process, I wanted to talk to you about values. And again, we chatted about this with the Planning Commission. So one of the things we know is that there have been, in the past 10 years, there have been a variety of survey efforts, including some very recent ones, that speak to kind of the vision that the community or the region is interested in. Our approach to this component of the process is to investigate and gather the information from those various surveys that other agencies and entities have done in the region over the past 10 years. What we want to do is gather the common themes from those, and then we want to use a variety of outreach methods. We want to confirm that these are still the priorities and see if there's anything that we're missing. But we want to build on the work that has already been done. Next. In terms of regional partnerships, this is something I think that we've consistently worked on throughout the time that I've been here, considering, we're building and strengthening partnerships. I think there are a lot more folks that we're going to wind up working with. And we have a variety of committees that we've already started to put together. We have a new Land Use and Transportation Resiliency Committee, including some technical assistance from the University of Nevada, Reno, and folks from the various agencies to help us work on some of this resiliency conversation. Some of the other pieces that we would continue to work on is continue to participate in a variety of shared work programs. Both the Western Regional Water Commission and the Washoe County School District have identified that they would like to do additional work plans, shared work plans with us, which we think is fantastic. We do believe that we need to create some other committees and study groups to address some other policy areas. And some current partnerships we're in right now also include EDON, Truckee Meadows Tomorrow, and we do partner a lot with the Nevada State Demographer. Third component is data gathering. Now, this is definitely something that we've also been working on quite a bit, and this is we think about this in terms of the context of the Smarter Region project, in terms of harnessing the data. We believe that data and information are key to building that comprehensive picture of our region and understanding the needs of all of our communities. Some of the examples of the actions that we could take include gathering data to help make decisions about the future of our region. We've been reviewing other regional plan updates across the country for their best practices, and we're doing an evaluation of current regional plan policies by jurisdictional staffs and other affected entities. That's actually starting next Thursday. We're going policy by policy. I think I said this on Tuesday night. We're very excited about that. Next, another component will be community engagement, and we want to ensure that we have a broad range of feedback, opinions in the development of the land use vision for our region. We want to use the TMRPA website to gather feedback from the community on policies in the current regional plan. We want to engage with the community in a variety of fashions on concepts for new plan policies. We expect to hold workshops. We expect to use a variety of survey tools, including Flash Vote, including our website. We are also ramping up our use of social media to both share more information about the work on the regional plan update, but encourage participation in the update process. And so those are some of the pieces that we see as part of the community engagement. We also think it would be really interesting to utilize the trade-off approach to engage the community in making resource and vision decisions. Okay, in terms of technical analysis, this is really about evaluating and analyzing the data that we have gathered for our region. And we have undertaken a variety of projects already, including industrial lands, housing. You've heard me talk about quite a few of these. We've just finished an evaluation of the Truckee Meadows service area in terms of a report from the Portland State University Urban Sustainability Accelerator Program. Many of you were fortunate enough to meet with Robert Liberty over the past 2 days. We've also been doing some work in understanding the transit-oriented development corridors for the region and an analysis of regional service costs across development patterns, various development patterns, excuse me. So finally, we come to the regional plan update and that kind of crafting of the comprehensive plan that's going to support our region for the next 20 years. We think it's really important to our actions develop goals and policies to support the vision and priorities expressed by the many participants in our region. And what I have listed up here is a couple of ideas about we're talking about may make their way into the regional plan we definitely think should be discussed. The inclusion potentially of scenario planning as a decision-making tool, the development of a biannual report that tracks how we're using land in our region, including housing, land use, employment, and other pieces, and the introduction of performance measures that allow us to evaluate our progress in the region. That's something that we think we can improve on what currently exists in the regional plan as it stands right now in terms of performance measurement. So what you see above you is a very rough time frame, and what we're really trying to show here is that some of these things, like data gathering and our partnerships or technical analysis, we've been doing this. Some of these we need to start working more, we need to work on a bit more. So in terms of values, we anticipate starting working on that next week, as well as community engagement. We want to start ramping that particular piece up. And that our regional plan development would start to move through kind of December, January, as we move into next year. We're still predicting a December 2017 adoption by this board, assuming that other projects do not come to the forefront. So what's next? When we presented this on Tuesday to the Regional Planning Commission, we also presented, Robert Liberty was in town, he gave them a presentation of the Truckee Meadows Service Area report. We also did a report on the evaluative work we've done on the transit-oriented development. The recommendation that had been approved by the RPC is that staff will draft a report that we will take to the RPC in November that can then be transmitted to your meeting in December. So a report from the Planning Commission, who is your technical advisory committee, on those two particular items. Again, I mentioned the policy by policy review. We've discussed the development and outreach. And again, this review of surveys, this values work that we want to go ahead and jump on next as we're wrapping up the housing study. So with that, we recommend that the governing board discuss this item, provide us with any feedback or suggestions that you have. We will share that with the Regional Planning Commission, and we recommend that you accept this report, and there's a motion ahead.
Okay, open to discussion. Mayor Martini.
Concerned about one thing. In light of what happened in the session last session in the legislature, where, not mentioning any names, one of the entities went behind our backs and tried to get this committee done away with. This year, I believe there's a BDR in the session going down to the session, same entity that wants to change how this board is made up, or maybe, again, even do away with this particular entity. I'm not ready or prepared to spend any money on the regional plan update until we find out exactly what's going to happen in the legislature. Why in the heck do we want to spend a bunch of money on a regional update when we may not have a regional planning commission? So that's where I'm coming from. I'm not prepared to do anything with this plan until we figure out the entity that has the BDR down there with no language. We have no idea what they want. Usually in the past, we've asked that if you have a concern about something in the legislature, we should get together and talk about it. Well, we don't sign that agreement anymore because nobody ever paid attention. you know, we all agreed that we would go down there en masse and do things and try to help each other out. Well, as far as I'm concerned, you can forget about that deal because it's not happening. So I'm tired of getting something stuck in my back when I'm supposed to know face to face what's going on. So that's my concern, and I'll have that concern. I will not vote on any money to be expended anytime until we figure out what happens with the BDR that's in the legislature. Thank you.
Okay, thank you,
Madam
Mayor
Chair.
Martini. Ms. Breckus?
I think Ms. Bigler wanted to go first.
Go
so-
ahead, it's fine.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I just heard one voice and turned around and said,
Well,
"You're looking at me."
like I was
the
signaling,
big
she had
girls.
spoken, and then I signaled, and you computer. Anyway, I just, you know, the mayor's proposal is very provocative, and you know, I was kind of thinking along the same lines of how, you know, the process lining up with that, knowing that BDR is out there, and also feeling that something was not reflected on the timeframes, and that's issues identification. You know, I think we need a thorough issues identification. And I'll tell you, I was late right now because I was meeting with representatives of a developer who want the city to do a contiguity annexation. So that's outside of the regional planning framework. That's that controversial one that brought us Cold Springs. We know it's legal. Is it good planning? I don't know. And it's crossing Toll Road, excuse me, or crossing Geiger grade, putting the city really into a boundary line irregularity where one of the few examples in the region where we have a good firm boundary. And it's because supposedly the county doesn't want to take on this land use there and do the development there. So the city's going to cross this boundary here. I have problems with voluntary outside of annexation program annexations that the city's done in the past. I don't know if everyone even knows what those are at this table. So I'm wondering, you know, I get the values clarification, and I think very clearly of that, but I would almost like to go into an issues identification so that we all know what the issues are that some may or may not have with regional planning, and it would help me to understand what the county's issues are, and speaking from real examples. So, you know, it's kind of in line with this thought, maybe? I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Burke-Bigler?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Since I represent, I'm at least one representative of the entity that's got the bill draft out, let me address a couple of issues. There are some things within the statute that directly impact the county that have no impact on the cities. We want those changed. So included in that is there are at least 3 members of our board who believe that since the cities are not restricted as to who they can assign to this committee, the county should not be restricted as to who can be assigned to the committee. That's definitely going to be in the bill draft. There may not be anything else in the bill draft, but that is one of the issues that has been of concern to 3 of the commissioners. So, but this is this planning is been around for a long time. When it was put in place, this was a different community than it is going forward, and so it's in the opinion of at least 3 of the commissioners, it is not a bad idea to have the legislature review this entire entity and see if it needs to look different than it looks today, or if it needs to have a different program than it has today. That's not to say that our goal is not to get rid of it. And that was made very clear at the last board meeting, that we are not interested in getting rid of the regional governing board or rid of the regional planning, but does it need to do the same programs that it's doing today in the new world of where we're going in the next 20 years. So that's and we don't have language on the bill yet. We do have to have language on the bill before very shortly, in a very short period of time, because we're getting calls from Brenda at LCB to get language for the bill. So that's in the process of being worked on. And as soon as it's done, it will be provided to this committee, as well as to the 2 cities.
Mayor Martini?
And that's what we don't have the language yet. If you're looking to change how your people are chosen or other people are chosen, then put it in the bill and let's run the bill that way, not just open wide where anything can go in there, because You know, you open up the door and pretty soon you got a bulldozer going through there with every piece of crap thing you can think of that goes into, when you open something like this, you open it wide open, it can get gutted real quick. And there was no intentions to do that. So, again, there's not, your commission is not even 100% behind this. So, I don't know, I'm nervous about this, very nervous about what might happen when it gets there. If it's so innocuous like you tell us, put the language in front of us and let us look at it, let us approve it. Don't tell us that we're gonna, it's not in there, don't worry, we won't do this and we won't do that and we won't do that. You know, my mother raised some dumb kids, but it wasn't me, okay? So I'm sorry, but I want to see what's gonna happen there before I spend any money on the update. Thanks.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Ms. Brickler.
In response, let me remind Mr. Mayor that that's what I do for a living, and that's what I've done for a living for many years, so I understand totally how the legislature works. And I also understand how this community works as partnership. I have been a proponent of us working as a team, as partners. I am not interested in creating a war with either the city of Sparks or the city of Reno, but there are some things that need to be fixed, and as soon as we have it drafted in language, we'll provide it to both entities.
Okay. Mr. Mayor.
Or Marcia, but you got the war paint on it. And when the war paint goes on, that's when the war starts. So that's what I'm seeing, okay? And I've seen it, I saw it last time at the legislature when I heard from a legislator who called me and said there was a couple people down there trying to do away with the Regional Planning Governing Board. When I asked one of those, no, that's not what I was down there for. Well, okay, a legislator called me and said, you guys better look out because here's what's coming. So there's, the war paint was put on then.
Member Bobzian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I probably differ a little bit from the provocative notion that the mayor has put out there that we not move forward with the regional plan until we see kind of the result of this. But I think we're in a tricky situation. I mean, and my understanding is that, you know, this community, all eyes are on what we're doing with with planning, with growth management, and so for us to not go forward with the regional plan update, I think is going to be problematic. But nonetheless, you know, clearly we're going to have some attention issues and bandwidth issues, I think, when we go to the legislative session to have this discussion, because we are going to try to keep the process moving. My hope is to keep the process moving on the regional plan update. I guess my one question for Commissioner Brickler is, and I appreciate having to, you know, assemble the language and get that in. Once you have the BDR, you got to do the language. But it sounds as if it's not just a language issue; it's a concept issue of what other concepts do you want to put in to the bill for examination of the legislature. And I guess the question would be: is there a process? If there's a schedule, if there's a calendar, how do you see that discussion going forward? Is this on a future agenda at a county commission meeting to discuss final concepts for the bill, or give us, I guess, a view of how we can expect the conversation to move forward, which we're all going to participate in, of course.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Brickler.
So there were a number of issues at the not the last meeting, but the meeting before last, where we discussed bill draft. There were a number of issues that were discussed. Do we want to include the greater region, the growth greater region? You know, are we at that stage of it? I don't think we are at that stage right now, but somebody may think we're at that stage. Do we want to do a broad-based bill that goes in and just essentially guts this committee to make it, you know, so that it doesn't have any authority to vote? Non-voting is advisory. That's the word. Thank you, guys. So there were a number of issues put on the table. Frankly, our chair's position was that is not something that's going to be acceptable to the other two entities, the two cities. And so she recommended that we come back, that staff come back with language that essentially addresses the issues for the county. And I think there are two. I can't, off the top of my head, I'm sorry, I don't remember what the second one is, but the issues that directly impact the county that are in the language that really make the county sort of a side entity and not really part of the team, if you will. And that's from our perspective. And so I believe that's the way the language is going to come back. It should come back at the November 29th, I think it is, meeting. So whenever the language is done and is coming back to us, that's kind of where it'll go. I do believe ultimately there will not be 3 votes to try and gut this committee. I believe there will be 3 votes to try and resolve the county's specific concerns. So that's where I think it's going. But there's 2 other commissioners sitting here, so they certainly can speak up and give their spin on what they thought happened at that meeting. But there were a number of issues thrown out there, but there were not any other than the area that the county's concerned about.
Madam Chair.
I think I had, Ms. Breckus, did you have a comment first?
Well, I mean, let's take that statement and kind of think about that, the issues that are problematic to the county. I don't have a lot of experience down in Carson City, but I understand once you open things up, anything can happen. And my concern working with the statutes, and I have a lot of experience working with the planning and zoning statutes, is you start to see things in these planning and zoning statutes that really should be in a zoning code, like how to notice this or that, or, curbing in, what can and cannot be subject to the regional plan. And so I'm afraid that some of the substantive issues that would get in the plan would get in statute, and then all of a sudden, the statute is becoming the plan and it's working out down there. And that's of grave concern to me. I don't understand what the county's problems are because we're all within the county. So when I hear comments on the county's problem, I'm hearing concern about unincorporated status versus incorporated status. And I would like issues identification so we can all stand and understand if we are going to go down to Carson, this is an issue. This is an issue to these people. This is not an issue to me. So I would encourage, as the kickstart is to get all these things out on the table, what we do or do not see as problems and how it works, because I'm still so vague on what are really the issues that the county has, and if they're of a countywide issue or an unincorporated issue.
Madam Chair.
Okay, Member Hartung.
Thank you. With all due respect to everyone in this discussion, and I have no problem having this discussion, but what's before us today, Madam Chair, is discussion and possible direction regarding the 2017 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan update. Talking about whether we're going to support an update or not. We're not talking about BDR. There was a comment that was made that Member Martini would not support an update right now based on these things. And I think we need to curb our direction. I think we're well outside of what's agendized here. This is just my own personal opinion, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think we need to just talk about. We can each talk about why we can support the update or not support the update. I think that's what's at hand here. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Member Martini.
I'm telling you why I don't want to support the regional plan update. And one thing about going to the legislature, not the right thing, kids. We have a legislator here. I know they don't want to be put in the middle of our problems. They don't want this down there. They don't want nothing to do with this. This is our problem. We should fix it. If we don't, they will fix it all right, and you probably won't like what you get fixed. So just watch out what you ask for because you just might get it. So that's my last comment.
Okay, I will bring it back as chair, and I am looking at what our agenda item is. I also know that this is something, and I don't know if Kim wants to go through already, that we plan on bringing forward the BDR in discussion to the December meeting. So if that helps the conversation of where we're moving with the BDR. Mr. Escobedo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to clarify for the record, for this board, so the conversation is not either out of bounds or unreasonable or inappropriately stifled. Mayor Martini raised the topic of why he did not want to go forward with the plan update, which is clearly within the scope of what's here. I think as long as it's within that context, it's appropriate to have this discussion.
Okay.
If you go too far down that legislative path, I'll be more than glad to jump up and
Okay.
say something. But I think right now, so far, you're fine.
Okay, thank you. Keep us on track, please.
So, Madam
ma'am.
Chair.
Okay, Member Hartung.
Thank you. Perhaps it would be appropriate to just delay this item and bring it back at a future meeting until we can satisfy certain issues that members have.
Okay. I do have a question for Kim on my question that is directly related to the, for the regional plan update, monies that are we spending, like, right now, our dollars and staff time obviously are being spent. If we stop this or slow it down or delay things, do we change the whole timeline? Or how does that affect, if we decided right now not to approve this today, to maybe move it to a December meeting, how does that affect work that's being done right now? Yes, Commissioner.
And sorry for jumping into the
No, go ahead.
questioning here, but I think pertinent to the question, as I understand the proposed motion, it's just to accept the staff report at this time as an update. So, I mean, I appreciate the concern that maybe we wait on this, but I'm very reluctant to signal to the community that we are not moving forward with the regional plan. I absolutely understand what the mayor is saying about his ultimate concerns. I share many of them, but I think, again, keeping our eyes on the ball, that this community expects us to work together for the update of a regional plan. So, but I would like to hear from the director as to your question, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In terms of the item that's being described here today, that is correct. We're asking you to accept the report of work that we've already done to this point, and a potential movement forward. The month of November we are still busy, I guess is what I want to say. So, you know, if this conversation gets held until December, it's certainly fine. There are plenty of other things for us to do. I think, you know, I understand all the points of view that are being stated here today, and as the chair just identified, our expectation was to get the language. My understanding was the language has to be submitted November 16th to the legislature. Our expectation was to get the language and to bring that to the governing board at the December meeting, to have that conversation at that point in time. I think it's completely fine if the governing board today says, okay, we've accepted this report, thanks very much. We expect to have a good conversation in December, and in the meantime, you can continue finishing up some of the work that you've already got on your plate. I think that's not going to change much.
Okay, Mayor Martini.
Look, folks, I'm one vote here, okay? I can't pass anything by myself, can I? So if you want to continue, this is just my opinion. Nobody else, I never talked to Charlene about this, or my management, or Ed Lawson. This is me saying this. And I'm only one vote. So if you want to go ahead, I understand that. It's not a...
Okay. Ms. Breckus?
Well, the item is also feedback, and I'd like to give a little feedback, Kim, before Mr. Martini made his comments, and maybe it'll help you as you move forward with, forward is, I see a lot of talk from you about partnerships, and, we've done partnerships, we've shared resource and data, but I think you need to approach it as mediating conflict. That's what the regional plan, and believe me, I've been up at the Historical Society reading microfiche about when this organization started. So I've gone very deep into the history and understand what birthed it. And it is mediating conflict. We have conflict here, and I think you need to illustrate almost on a Venn diagram sort of issue for the issues clarification that I'm looking for that can maybe make some sense if something pops up down there, but we can speak very concretely on what are potential areas of conflict that you see that need to be mediated. And, let me know if that's not a partnership that you're thinking. If you have partnerships being other concept, let me know. But that's what I see. And I see it right away. I mean, like I said, I was just looking at lot lines to lot lines proposed for development, conflict, of land use city conflict right up being proposed, to coming into CD intake next month. So, there's an example right there. Does that cause conflict with unincorporated residents that these county commissioners are trying to protect, preserve in some way? Maybe there's some common ground, because I am ready for Reno to say, we're not doing out-of-program annexations. So I think you need to really start digging into what is the conflict, this governance issue. Maybe that's a good starting point, but you need to go into, I think, what are the substantive land use conflicts that are driving this debate.
Ms. Stewart?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Kim earlier, just on this item, about the schedule, the next steps, potential costs, but what I'm thinking is I'm going to wait on that instead of getting into that, and just wherever this motion goes, and maybe you can give us that information at a later date. Okay.
Okay. Do I have any other comments, or do I have a motion?
No, we have a comment down.
Mr. McKenzie? I didn't see you waiting.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And I agree with Mayor Martini that expenditure of funds to, when we may not ultimately have anything in the end to move forward with is not prudent. But I also agree with Commissioner Breckus that if we don't identify the issues, then we're not going to resolve them. And that is what this board is supposed to be. That's why we're a regional planning group, is to try to resolve the regional issues around planning and try to, so that we can have a coherent plan and that all of us can agree to. Maybe not all of us be totally happy with, but that we can all move forward with. And so as some input to staff, I would ask that that we work on identifying those items so that we can get them out on the table. And as we move forward in the plan, those need to be resolved as we move forward with this regional plan update, is that we address those issues. And if we had something like that at our next meeting at the same time we were looking at the proposed bill draft, then we probably be on a lot better footing to make a decision on how fast we wanted to move forward. But I think that that's a key issue to making sure that we're in a position to move forward. If we can't resolve the issues that are causing the problems that the county is having with what regional planning is doing, then we're going to be dysfunctional, and that's we need to address them.
Well, and I would echo that also, as far as we need to get everything out on the table. We need to talk about what issues there are, so that all of us can see what we can work to that end, and those impact both, the BDR that we know is going to be there and what happens in Carson City, but also the regional plan update. It's part of, as we move forward with the regional plan update, we've got to have a consensus here, and we've got to be all working together for the betterment of the region, not infighting amongst each other or just disagreements that we can't work out. And it needs to be a win-win on all those levels, so that we come together with a great regional plan update and resolving a BDR and what happens in the legislature. So I think it's important to have that discussion. I look forward to having the BDR language next month, to continuing this conversation on the BDR itself and the regional plan update in December, when we have a better idea of where we're going and where our time and funds will be allocated according to what we see and what our conversations are moving forward from December. So that's where I sit on this. I had Mr. Hartung.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is just a really basic scenario where I agree with everything that's been said from everyone, especially Member Bobsian, and I would move to accept the information presented in the staff report. That's really what we're talking about today.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor to accept the information in today's report by Member Hartung, with a second by Member Bobsian. Do I have any comments? Any discussion or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This motion carries unanimously. Okay, so we'll move on to item 8, reports, members and directors' reports. Ms. Robinson.
Madam Chair, this is, one item has occurred to me as we've sat here and had this conversation, which is to host a workshop for the governing board members to be able to identify what issues they believe are with the regional plan. I'm wondering if we would like to do that at the December meeting, or we can do it at another time. You don't have to answer me today. I can poll you privately. But I'd like to put that out there as an idea. What we have really been focused on is evaluating how the plan that currently exists and has been out there for 10 years, how that plan is working and what some pieces are missing. So I think getting that feedback would be something that's really good. And again, I'll engage with you privately to figure out kind of what the timing pieces are on those. That's my only report.
Yes. Okay, and I guess what, and I guess, Ms. Robinson, I guess I'd want to clarify too for the, or is that future agenda? Would that be future agenda for our
That would
bill
be-
draft? Okay.
that is
I'm
for
I'm
future
ahead of
agenda.
myself. I'm ahead of myself
That's
here.
okay, but I would like to also point out the location will be determined for the December 8th meeting as the Chambers is undergoing renovation for the next 2 months.
The county chambers. Okay.
County Chambers,
You know,
okay. Ms. Breckus.
You know, I wouldn't object to that. I think that's not a bad idea, but I think you need to commit something to writing, even if you're wrong, and have someone call you on it. You know, this is not an issue from this perspective, or it is. I think rather than, I don't want to get in December to have another conversation of generalities and the, you know, and if you have to get to the staff and get to us, but have a document out in front of us that we can see diagrams or whatever and say, no, this really isn't an issue, but it's at least a starting point for that retreat. So I'd like to see some materials produced by your staff if we do a retreat sort of activity, so that it's a talking point rather than moving in a free flowing, you know, more recycling of what we're talking about here.
Okay.
Yeah, he's easy.
Let's move on to item B. Legal counsel. Norm, do you have a report?
Yes, ma'am, I do. Last time we met, I mentioned that I was contemplating and in the process of transitioning into the law firm of Dyer, Lawrence, Flaherty, Donaldson, and Prunty. That has happened. And we did the conflict check, and there are no conflicts. And so I am here, and myself, and that's what I contemplate going forward. The phone number will not change. The website will not change. Ultimately, the website will change the name of the firm. The letterhead will change. I'll be one of many as opposed to one of one. And it's, for me, very exciting in the sense that my estate planning practice, I have 2 paralegals to hand things off to. And I have to say that years ago would have bothered me, and I really find it quite delightful now. And so that assistance is really helpful to get those documents prepped. You will still see me, unless you would like someone else from the firm, and that could be arranged. And I intend to be your lawyer. I will have backup. There are paralegals, and Jessica Prunty, who is a lawyer in the firm that I've known since she was a law clerk for Judge Griffin, will be providing backup. There have been instances in the past when I've had a conflict, and your staff, Kim and previous directors, have been very accommodating. And if something needs to go forward now, I'm going to have someone shadowing me. And so unless you have an objection, I'd like to continue forward with this board.
Okay.
Pardon me? And so that's where we're at. We will coordinate with Kim and make sure everything's on point always. And if you have any questions, I'm here and glad to answer them.
Do I have questions from Ms. Breckus?
I'd just like to congratulate you on the move. And many years ago, I sat through a session on water law presented by a very enthusiastic young Miss Prunty, and I was very impressed. And so I'm really excited. I think that sounds like a great partnership.
If I may say this on the record, she's an extremely solid lawyer. She's terrific in the administrative capacity, which a lot of this body is. And she's younger, so that's helpful too. She can help me a little bit, and the firm does not do any land use planning, so the possibility of a conflict arising will be non-existent. And the firm itself has committed that they will step off of anything that will raise a conflict. So, much like myself, this body was first order. You were my first client when I left the AG's office, and that's meant a lot to me over the years. And now I get to do a little more fishing, and I have backup.
So, Mr. Azevedo, do you need a motion to accept us retaining you as counsel?
Yes, ma'am, that'd be helpful.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion. So moved by Mr. Hartung, second by Mr. Martini. I would like to say also thank you for your service and for your legal advice, and your presence here is invaluable to keeping us on track. So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, I'm looking at item 9, request for future agenda items. Okay, so we know we have BDR language. And Kim, do you have is there other requests for anything else that, or something you have on Mr. Bobsian?
So I think I heard two things coming from Councilman Breckus. I mean, we have BDR language in that discussion, but I think, getting right to an overview of areas of potential conflict and really kind of walking through and beginning that discussion. I think that, as has been stated, this is the forum for us to do that. And I think that, some sort of a preliminary white paper. I know that there's been a lot of work done so far by staff on identifying topics for the update and walking through those different concepts. But I think also, the conflict analysis of, here are the tough choices that the entities are going to have to grapple with and where the likely disagreements are going to be. I think that as a separate agenda item, separate and apart from the BDR discussion, I think would be productive.
Okay, and I would add also that we would be also discussing where the plan update will be. So we'll be revisiting that next month, contingent on the BDR. Huh? Another update on the update for next month's request. December. Excuse me, next meeting, December 8th. Okay, moving on, item 10, public comment. Do I have any public comment?
No, do not.
Do I have anyone wishing to make public comment? Okay, seeing none, I am looking for a motion to adjourn. Move to adjourn, Mackenzie, second by Bobzian. We are adjourned.